Issue 113. We start out with Sonic, Sally, Nicole, and Antoine for some reason, deep in the caverns of the Great Canyon Range, when the cave entrance closes up. One of them, I assume Sonic, lampshades the fact that if Dulcie had come with them, she could have melted the rock entrance with her fire breath. Then he looks on the bright side that at least they had some light, as he's using a torch he conveniently had. Sally, instead of pointing out that Dulcie wouldn't fit in the cave anyway, so we're asking why the hell Dulcie isn't here at all, says that Dulcie's claustrophobic, and needs to explain what that word means since Sonic's more street smart than anything. Well, that must suck for a dragon considering they're going to have to live in a world that's too small for them. Sally is genre savvy about not splitting up, but that doesn't stop Sonic from running ahead of them anyways and almost running off a cliff, causing him to stand still stunned for a few moments and almost getting himself killed before returning to his friend's side. After Antoine gets frightened by a loud noise and Sally drops him rudely instead of letting him down gently, Sonic assumes that the Wolfmobian he sees trapped him in the cave, but he still has a good reason to be annoyed at someone trespassing on his land and then accusing him of wrongdoing. Sally asks him to guide them out of the cave, and they all quietly lampshade how they're being too trusting of this guy. After they all get dropped in a trap door and slide to the Wolfpack's home, they're all surprised at the Wolfpack calling themselves freedom fighters for some reason, and we cut to them discussing things while, I guess, levitating in a meditation stance. Maybe there's magic around? Wait a minute, how the hell did Lupe get unroboticized? Are they gonna explain that? Sally says that she and her friends had heard Eggman was experimenting with a new weapon around here. Did that weapon unroboticize her? And Eggman recovered from being nuked already? That was fast. They had come to investigate when they had to run into the caves to avoid detection. Lupe said that until Sally had been identified as the princess, she and her friends were expecting some robots. And Sally says she didn't know the Wolfpack even existed anymore, and asks how they'd kept it a secret all this time. Lupe explains that there's not much to keep secret anymore, because every trace of her culture has been wiped out, except for a file she was holding on the Wolfpack. If that's the case, then why did she even bother trying to go back to her old city at all, when every trace of her culture had been wiped out? What's the point? Sally orders Nicole to update the file on the Wolfpack, and she reads that they were a peaceful, isolationist people. Pointless recap. And then Lupe explains with some tears that they kept hitting Eggman's factories and power station, which caused him to start testing a weapon on them. It was temporarily disabled, but it won't be long before it's up and running again. After Sonic wonders if other freedom fighter groups out there could be thinking that they're the only ones around, I immediately start to wonder if this story actually takes place before the freedom fighters have met any of the other groups, because that would certainly explain why the hell Lupe is back to being non-roboticized all of a sudden. Sonic wishes that they could get some communication network going, and Lupe asks if some souvenirs from Eggman's factories would suffice. Sonic asks if Lupe also has something that fires, and she says she doesn't know how to activate it. I guess it's got overly complicated controls. Sonic suggests hooking up to Nicole so that she can figure it out with her magical bullshit powers. Then I'm promptly proven right about the story taking place really far back chronologically all of a sudden, because we see Robotnik again, asking a non-roboticized Snively how long before their experimental hovercraft is fully operational. You know, it's fine if they want to have a story set in the time of Robotnik, but they could at the very least have the decency to give a proper framing device, by having Sonic telling a story about it at the very start of the issue, instead of confusing the audience. I mean, maybe they have text before the panels start for the first page explaining what's happening, but that was obviously cut out of the video I found. They should have just assumed that the audience would skip those pages. Snively, terrified of Robotnik, is yelled at that the Wolfpack just outsmarted him. And then we see Lupe walking around with Sonic and Sally telling her that they have to be careful because Robotnik's robots are somewhere around there, and that they have to find higher ground for their cannon. She hopes that Nicole found the right activation sequence. I assume she did because she always gets this stuff right for some reason. I don't think she's ever made a single mistake. And they say Sally's married too. Lupe orders everyone to space out because there's a surveillance ship, and because Snively saw some movement, he activates the heat sensors. Everyone's hidden into caves, and then they decide to set up the cannon and wait for Robotnik's new weapon to show up while it's trying to search for them. After they fire a laser saying it worked, it's revealed that the cannon didn't even make a dent in it. Why'd they assume it works so easily then? They all start running from the flying UFO's lasers, and after Sally passes Sonic a ring from his backpack that he apparently has, he creates a twister, which catches and damages a hovercraft, causing Sally to give Sonic a kiss in the cheek. Unfortunately, the hovercraft starts floating back up, 80% operational, and after Sonic and Sally get captured by Snively, Sonic immediately humiliates him by tying him up with rope at super speed that he somehow had. Sally then tells Nicole to copy a file about the experimental weapon and orders Sonic to lure the weapon to a lightning field 2 miles north from here. Also, lightning is spelled with an E before the N. What kind of a field is it supposed to be then? Well, it turns out that it really is a field full of lightning. So what's with the spelling mistake? The story ends with the hovercraft destroyed by lightning, and Sally says that her father would be proud to know that they're striving together to restore this kingdom and defeat Robotnik and his sub-bosses. So she hasn't found her father yet either? Or restored him? This issue was written by J. Oliveras. And while the plot is perfectly fine, I have 2 major problems with it. The most distracting one is that I hate the pastel watercolor art. It doesn't suit Sonic at all. It's supposed to be the badass, action-packed Mario counterpart. But everyone looks so soft and cuddly. I really fucking hope they'll never use this art style again. That's purely superficial though. The real problem with the story is that while apparently the story is said to take place before issue 46, there's nothing in the panels telling you that. There's no framing device where Sonic is telling this as a war story in the present day. Not even a text blurb in narration in the first panel, which wouldn't have been that hard to do. So I was promptly confused at seeing Lupe not roboticized and Robotnik and non-roboticized Snively being there. I mean, I'm assuming for the benefit of I'm gonna give the comic a benefit of the doubt and assume that maybe they have text explaining this and that just wasn't included in the video. But they shouldn't have included the text before the pages with the pictures started, because most of the audience probably skips those pages anyways. That's just more reading, and comics make you do enough reading as it is.